Where once there was only despair, now there's real light at the end of the coronavirus tunnel. With only so many doses available at any one time, though, what is Arkansas's approach to immunization? 2, how many Arkansans will roll up their sleeves and how many will not? And this, if there's hope for the end of this pandemic, how do we best prepare for the next one? Questions for 2 experts coming up on Arkansas Week.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. The best news is the simplest news, and it's this. There is a vaccines against COVID-19, the first doses of them now being administered in Arkansas, and additional doses, tens of thousands of them, will soon arrive. Beyond that, a lot of Arkansans have lots of questions. When and where can they be immunized? Though some Arkansans are uncertain if they should be immunized. Joining us now with some answers, Dr. Greg Bledsoe, the Surgeon General of Arkansas, and Dr. Jessica Snowden, Chief of Pediatric Infectious Disease at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. Doctors, thank you very much for being with us. Dr. Bledsoe, let me go first to you. We are hearing vaccines, multiple, plural, kind of confusing, or at least it is for this individual. Which vaccine are we getting? Are we getting both? Are we getting 3?
That's a great question, Steve. And the vaccines that have been delivered so far to the state of Arkansas have been the Pfizer vaccine. That's the one that's rolling out currently. It's being given to our healthcare professionals. But the hope is that we'll get some doses of the Moderna vaccine within the next few weeks. We'll wait and see exactly on the time of arrival. But the one that's arrived thus far in our state is the Pfizer vaccine.
Well, courtesy of the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, we have some pictures that constitute some very good news, and that is some health professionals, presumably at UAMS, who are getting a dose of vaccine. Now, here it is being unloaded. This is earlier this week. This is hope in a package, a profoundly refrigerated package, I must say.
Absolutely.
You're right. I'll tell you, when we gave our first doses at Arkansas Children's Hospital, we all applauded, and everybody who was there to get the first round of doses was just so excited to be part of that and to know that this is the first step to the end being in front of us.
And this immunization process will continue. We are getting doses now, are we not, doctors, in increments of about 1,000 per unit, but multiple units, if I understand it correctly.
That's right.
Yeah. And some of the larger hospitals in the state will get direct lots of those multiple thousands of units. But then even among the smaller hospitals, we want to make sure that we get as much vaccine as far across the hospital as we can, are getting smaller components. So you might not get 1,000 doses. We have pharmacies that are helping divide it up so we can try to distribute it to the places that need it first. We will all get it eventually, but at least figuring out how to get it to the right places first is going to be a really important collaboration.
And the people who are and should be, one assumes, getting it first are the frontline healthcare providers, the physicians, the nurses, the respiratory therapists.
Absolutely. And it's a really exciting day because these people have been putting their lives on the line, working long hours, really dealing with this on the front lines. And for this vaccine to come through and to be able to give this to the frontline workers, I think is a great step forward and very encouraging and exciting for everyone who's been involved in this pandemic response.
Well, doctors, what is the timeline now? Do we even know a timeline now for with what speed Arkansas will be getting additional doses?
We've gotten these first doses, which are going to go to the frontline workers, and then in the next few weeks, we're hoping to have another group of vaccines that we can give to those who are taking care of the long-term care residents, and then also the residents, the patients themselves. And then over the next few months, what we hope is that we're going to be getting additional aliquots of these vaccines to distribute around the state, first to the healthcare workers, then to the people who are most at risk, and then to the broader community. And so there's a lot of hope here that we can get a significant number of these doses in the next few months and really start tackling this problem.
Well, and in terms of moving it into the general population, well, let's go to the at-risk population. We have to assume that is those who were 55, 60, 65, and older. Doctor, with certainly with pre-existing conditions anyway.
Yeah, so most of the states are following, and we are as well, the guidance that came out from the CDC and the Advisory Council Committee on Immunization Practices, giving us tiers of people as we roll this out. And each hospital in each state is going to adjust that depending on how much vaccine we get, how quickly. So we might be able to, as we get larger and larger doses, take large pieces of our tiers at one time. So it's going to be something where we all have to communicate with each other frequently and be patient as we get more and more medication to get it to the right people. But the idea is that we do the people at highest risk because of their work exposures in the healthcare field first, and then we'll move to people who are at high risk because of personal factors, so people who are older and have other conditions.
All of the vaccines that we are aware of so far, the three that we're aware of anyway, will they all require 2 applications? Is this a 2-stage process?
So the first 2 that we have do, it's a 2-dose primary series. So both the only one that's been currently approved by the FDA for an emergency use authorization is the Pfizer product we have in the state right now. And that is a 2-dose primary series. So you get 1 dose and then another one 21 days later. If you get both of those doses, your protection is 95%, which is excellent. If you only get 1, your protection is much, much less. You need to get both doses. The Moderna vaccine that is being discussed by the FDA today as we speak is also a 2-dose series. We'll see as we move through other vaccines whether there'll be a 1 or a 2-dose series because each vaccine is built a little bit differently.
Let me stay with you, Dr. Snowden, for just a second, because you emphasize that a 95% success rate or effectiveness rate is excellent. Compare that, if you would, you're a pediatric specialist, to say a measles or a mumps vaccine in terms of its level of effectiveness.
Exactly. No, that's a really great question. And this would be as effective as what we see in measles, where we see 90+% from people who get the 2-dose series. And importantly, the reason we want to make sure we get as many people vaccinated as possible and as many people continue doing our distancing practices and doing our masking is because 95% is not 100. Not everybody who gets vaccines responds to them the same way. I got my 2 doses of the measles vaccine, and I actually didn't develop any measles antibodies. That's pretty important for a pediatrician who does infectious disease. And so it's making sure that we're aware that we're not always going to get everybody. We still have to keep our best practices in place until this is over. But 95% efficacy is amazing, and that's why we're all so excited about it. One of the things that we've seen as we look at kind of vaccine uptake data is the more and more we started publishing how well the vaccine was working, the more excited people were to take it and the more people who said they would be willing to take it. I think a comparison that can be really helpful is to think about what we see when we see the flu vaccine efficacy. So the flu vaccine, we tend to look more at 60 to 70% on a good year. So this is much, much better than what we see with the flu vaccine, and we were very excited to see such a good response so early.
Let me go ahead and ask now both doctors, do we know enough yet about contraindication? Are there individuals who should not take this?
Right now, the only absolute contraindication is if we know you have anaphylaxis to something that's in the vaccine. And the ingredients to the vaccine are publicly available. You can Google what's in the vaccine. It's only about 10 things, so it's pretty easy to figure out if you're allergic to it or not. And importantly, it doesn't contain things that are in the flu vaccine or in many of our other vaccines. So having a reaction to another vaccine isn't necessarily a contraindication. Having an allergy to eggs actually is not a contraindication here, which is really nice. One thing that we do currently have in our guidelines is a precaution for people who've had anaphylactic reactions to other injected medications. And that's because we've seen in the news out of the UK, and there were 2 cases in Alaska, where people have had an anaphylactic reaction to the vaccine being injected. And that's always the potential with any medication, that you can have a severe allergic reaction that you didn't have before. We monitor people after they're getting their vaccine to make sure that they're not having any difficulties, and we make sure that when we give it, we have things available to treat anaphylaxis were it to happen. But right now, we're watching that allergy data to try to decide how broad that precaution for people needs to be. Importantly, though, that precaution is only for people who've had anaphylactic reactions to injected medications. So if you have an anaphylactic reaction to bees or wasps or peanuts or oral medications, those things don't seem to be cross-reacting. You can and should go ahead and get the vaccine if you're eligible.
Dr. Bledsoe, mercifully, there have been many thousands of Arkansans who have been declared recovered from COVID-19. Presumably, they have antibodies. Should they get in line at the appropriate time? Should they get in line for this vaccine?
Absolutely, and the general recommendation is that even if you've had COVID and a positive test for COVID, you should still take the vaccine, just because we don't know how long you have immunity to the disease. And so we're still recommending, especially those who are high risk, healthcare workers, people who have other issues, people who are elderly. Please don't assume that just because you've had COVID-19 and recovered from it, that you don't need the vaccine. We want people to get vaccinated. A couple of months ago, I was diagnosed with COVID-19. Not a fun experience. And when the opportunity came as a frontline worker for me to get the vaccine a couple of days ago, I went ahead and got it for that very reason. So it's very important that we vaccinate folks, even if they've had a positive diagnosis.
But now, it is, I suspect, important to point out that though healthy individuals who do take the vaccine, it's quite possible that they will have some immediate some side effects. For example, what, Dr. Bledsoe, are these profound side effects? Lasting?
No, and of course, people respond to immunizations a little bit differently, but for the most part, what we're seeing is just the mild, typical things that you get with an immunization. So 2 days ago, I got my immunization for COVID-19. I had a very low-grade fever. I felt a little achy, was a little fatigued, had some soreness at the injection site, and had a little bit of nasal congestion. So, just felt a little off, but within 24 hours, that was completely completed for me, and I felt 100% normal and had a good workout and got my work done in my office, and, nothing that would distract me from my normal daily activities. So, any of those mild things are classified as, a typical immune response to a vaccine, and not something that the general public needs to worry about.
In terms of mothers who are women who are expecting, who are carrying, or who are breastfeeding, who are nursing now, should they have any reluctance? Should they take the vaccine when it's available?
That's probably one of the most common questions I'm getting is about, because we work with healthcare workers where many of them are women of childbearing age, childbearing potential. There's no reason to think that this vaccine is going to affect anything about breast milk or a fetus or a developing baby, because as the vaccine is injected in your arm, the mRNA degrades almost immediately. So you have a really quick degradation. It's not going to leave that local site. There's no reason to think anything in the vaccine is going to get into breast milk or exposed to a developing baby. Both the CDC and all of the groups that work with pregnant women are recommending that we go ahead and vaccinate them, and we allow them to be vaccinated. We do know that women who have coronavirus and are pregnant actually have worse outcomes. So we definitely want to make sure we protect this group. If there's no evidence there's going to be harm, and we know that it's a group that we definitely want to protect, both the CDC and all other groups are saying, yes, absolutely, let's allow them to get dosed.
Yeah, Dr. Snowden used this phrase a second ago, but I would like to pose the question to both our guests. You used the phrase, those who are, quote, willing to take it. There is this vaccine was, after all, developed, they call the project Warp Speed, Operation Warp Speed. That would give rise to some apprehension, I suspect, on the part of some consumers. Did we do this too quickly? Dr. Snowden?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Either one of you,
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that's one of the things that we're trying to be really transparent about as we talk about this. This virus has been politicized in a lot of different ways, and we know that this moved really, really quickly. and reassuring people that all the steps were followed, were transparent, were public, and exactly how we were able to get this done this fast is going to be really important to build trust. The reason this worked so quickly is because we learned a lot from the SARS pandemic, if you'll remember years ago, and the MERS pandemic, both of which were other coronaviruses, similar to what we're seeing with COVID-19. So we learned a lot from them in terms of what we would need to make an effective vaccine. And this particular vaccine construct took a lot from what we had already learned there. That made it go a lot faster. The other thing that's been really helpful, and one of my nurses in the ID clinic uses this analogy, is that typically we treat vaccine development and drug development as a relay race. I finish one piece and I hand off to the next piece and I hand off to the next piece. In this case, it's more like a lot of swimmers in the lane at the same time. So we had some tasks that overlap. We were able to do that because we invested really heavily in this, and people were willing to take that risk and fail, have a piece fail and the vaccine not move forward, which could cost the pharmaceutical development company money. We were able to protect that by all the money we invested in Operation Warp Speed. All of the steps, though, that the FDA goes through and the CDC goes through were the same as they are for any other product, and they were all public. You can watch it right now. You can watch the FDA Advisory Committee. So we really have done everything we can to make sure it's safe. This was just a matter of being able to build on prior science and take advantage of a huge societal investment in making this move quickly.
Dr. Bledsoe, do you concur with your colleague that
Absolutely. She's 100% correct. And I would just say to people who are concerned about this that, you know, this is the data that we have, the processes that were followed. I really feel strongly this is a safe and effective vaccine. And it's one of the main reasons why I stepped out this week and took it myself, just as sort of an example for my patients that I'm going to be recommending get this vaccine. You know, there are a lot of questions. There's been a lot of politics involved this year and discussion about the pandemic and COVID and vaccines and all these other things. And, you know, I feel very strongly that this is something that we all can do as a state and as a community to really fight against the pandemic and make some good forward progress by getting people vaccinated.
Yeah, there is some, as you noted, Dr. Bledsoe, there is some political resistance, some philosophical resistance to immunization, some even religious, and there is an ethnic quotient in there. In some communities of color, there is a real concern, a real fear. It's traditional. It goes back to some absolutely horrible incidents in American medical history, that there is a great deal, there is a deficit of trust in some communities to the medical community or to immunizations. Dr. Bledsoe, is the state planning anything to address that?
Well, I think it was really a great thing for a lot of reasons that the first person in the state of Arkansas who received the Pfizer vaccine was an African-American nurse who works at the health department. I just applaud her for her example and for her courage in doing that. And there have been a number of African-American leaders and minority leaders around the state who have voiced their support of the vaccine and encouraging the communities that they represent to receive the vaccine. Yesterday on Twitter, State Senator Joyce Elliott tweeted about the vaccine and her positive support of it. And there have been many others like her who have done the same. So I think we as a healthcare system need to do everything we can to be transparent and to communicate with these groups who in the past have been not treated equitably, and to build bridges of communication to make sure that they're in the loop on the decision-making process and the communication of this vaccine going forward.
I can see you nodding in agreement, Dr. Snowden. I can't imagine you disagreeing.
No. And I think the important thing is really going to be that we make sure we're open in conversations. We don't make assumptions about where someone's reluctance is coming from or assumptions that we know more than anybody else does. Everybody is an expert in their own space, and we have to meet them where they are and respect that to find a way that we can make this equitable for everybody, because it is important that we reach a broad group of our ethnic minorities here in the state of Arkansas, ethnic minorities in terms of thinking about our Marshallese population that we know is disproportionately affected, our Hispanic patients who have been disproportionately affected, and our African American families who are also disproportionately affected by the virus, but also might have lots of reasons that they are reluctant to or unable to access the healthcare system that we need them to in order to keep them safe. And that's going to require a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of willingness to be open on the part of the entire healthcare community.
Couple of minutes remaining, and I would pose this to both our doctors. There is I suppose it's understandable, with word of a vaccine, are you as practitioners concerned about COVID fatigue, our lowering our guard, now that there is some hope on the horizon. Doctor?
Well, yes, it's been a long slog. I mean, it's been many months dealing with this, and I think everyone's fatigued. Healthcare providers are fatigued. Hospital administrators are fatigued. Those, who are working in the various agencies are fatigued, and the public is fatigued. And so I would just, say to everyone that it's not over yet. Hopefully this is the beginning of the end, but it's certainly not the end. We've got a ways to go still. But the good news is that we've been sort of on defense for the last 8 months. We've been responding and reacting, and now we've got an offensive tool. We can go forward. And so that's the encouraging thing here. We're not out of the woods yet, but we've got something that we can make some progress and get the ball down the field, and that's very encouraging.
Dr. Snowden, I would imagine you're saying masks, soap, and water, and keep your hands away from your face.
And keep away from other people, right? It's to the point my husband and I laugh because we're thrown off in movies when people are close to each other. Why are they doing that? So absolutely, it's really important. And we've talked to our healthcare providers here. Even if you're vaccinated, we are setting an example and a standard for our communities. Continue to mask, continue to distance. That's the mainstay of what's going to help us get this over. And a vaccine is just one more tool in the toolbox. It's not the end of the game if we don't continue to do everything else.
Dr. Snowden, Dr. Bledsoe, invaluable information. Thank you so much for being with us. Come back soon.
Thanks for having us.
And this is our final edition of Arkansas Week for the year, the final edition in our customary format. Next week in this time slot, we'll spend a half hour, as per usual, with Senator John Bozeman of Arkansas, end of the year review. And as is our custom, we close out this year by remembering the Arkansans who left the public arena in the previous 12 months. They're the men and women who gave us something to talk about each week, or who helped us cover the news. And if there are omissions, certainly they were inadvertent. Thank you for making us a part of your schedule. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you next year.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.